The great chamber of the Galactic Council was silent. 12 species sat in their ancient seats, looking down at the small human woman who stood alone on the speaking platform. Ambassador Wei kept her back straight even though she knew what was coming. She had known for weeks. The council had already made their decision. This trial was just a show. High Arbiter of the Hegemony rose from his seat. His scales were deep purple, almost black, and his eyes were cold like stones at the bottom of a frozen river. He had ruled the council for 300 years. In all that time, he had never lost. The human species has violated Expansion Treaty 7 Alpha, he announced. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. They have colonized the frontier without permission. They have spread beyond their allowed borders. They have ignored our warnings. Wei stepped forward. High Arbiter, those colonies were established on dead worlds, worlds that no other species wanted. We turned rock and dust into gardens. We hurt no one. You broke our law, said simply. That is enough. The other council members nodded their heads. Some of them were insect-like creatures with many eyes. Others were tall and thin like shadows given form. A few looked almost human, but their smiles were too wide and their teeth were too sharp. None of them spoke in humanity's defense. None of them ever had. The punishment has been decided, continued. Earth's colonies will be reclaimed. Humanity will be confined to their home system. Your ships will be destroyed. Your technology will be limited. You will learn your place. Wei felt cold fear in her stomach, but she did not let it show on her face. And if we refuse? Smiled, it was not a kind smile. You cannot refuse. The combined fleet is already on its way to your world. 4,000 warships from 6 species. Your defense fleet has 200 ships. The mathematics are simple, Ambassador. Earth will comply or Earth will burn. Wei opened her mouth to respond, but her communication device buzzed against her wrist. She looked down at it. The message was short. 3 words that broke her heart. Fleet has arrived. She looked up at, he was still smiling. He had known. They had all known. The fleet had been sent before the trial even started. You planned this, she whispered. We planned everything, the High Arbiter replied. Humanity has been a problem since the day you joined the Council, too aggressive, too creative, too unwilling to accept your proper position. We tolerated you for 80 years. We watched you grow. We let you believe you had a future. He leaned forward in his seat. That was our mistake. We should have dealt with you sooner. Wei's device buzzed again, and again, and again. Each message was worse than the last. Defense fleet engaged. CASUALTIES mounting. Fleet DESTRYD. 11 MINUTES. Orbital bombardment beginning. She fell to her knees. Around her, the council watched with expressions that ranged from satisfaction to boredom. To them, this was not a tragedy. It was housekeeping. It was removing a pest that had grown too bold. On Earth, the sky turned red. General Stone stood in the command center beneath New Geneva, watching the screens with empty eyes. Every screen showed the same thing: fire. The great cities of humanity were burning. Beijing, New York, Mumbai, Cairo. One by one, the lights went out. The planetary shield had held for almost an hour. That was longer than anyone had expected. But 4,000 warships carried a lot of weapons, and eventually, even the strongest shield had to fall. Sir, a young officer said, her voice shaking. The shield is down. They're targeting population centers directly now. Stone nodded slowly. He had served Earth for 40 years. He had fought pirates and rebels and even a small war against the 3 decades ago, but he had never imagined this. He had never imagined the end of everything. How many? He asked. 2 billion dead in the first wave, the officer replied. Projections suggest total casualties within 6 hours. 9 billion people lived on Earth, 9 billion lives, 9 billion stories, all of them ending tonight. Is there anything we can do? Another officer asked. He was young too. They were all young. The old soldiers had died with the fleet. Stone thought about lying. He thought about giving them hope, but they deserved the truth. "No," he said, "there is nothing we can do. Earth is going to die tonight." The room was silent except for the distant sound of explosions far above them. Some of the officers were crying. Others simply stared at nothing, their minds unable to accept what was happening. "There is one thing," Stone said quietly. He walked to a console in the corner of the room. It was old, covered in dust. No one had touched it in decades. "Something we prepared long ago in case this day ever came." He entered a code. The console hummed to life. "What is that?" the young officer asked. "A message," Stone replied, "to those who might still have a chance." He pressed a button. Somewhere deep in space, a signal began to broadcast. It was weak. It was fragmented, but it carried 3 words that would change everything. "Prometheus, HFY, remember." Then the ceiling collapsed, and General Stone and everyone in the command center died with their world. In the council chamber, watched the holographic display. Earth's biosigns were dropping. 8 billion, 6 billion, 4 billion, 2 billion, 500 million, 100 million, 10 million, 1 million. 0. The planet was not destroyed. It still hung in space, blue and green and white, but nothing lived on its surface anymore. Nothing would live there for 1,000 years. "The human problem," announced to the chamber, "is solved." The council erupted in polite applause. Some species had been worried about humanity. The young species had been too clever, too quick to learn, too willing to push boundaries. There had been whispers that humans might one day challenge the council itself. Those whispers were silent now. Ambassador Wei was still on her knees on the speaking platform. She was weeping, but no sound came from her mouth. Her home was gone. Her family was gone. Everything she had ever known was gone. A council guard approached her. "You will be taken to a holding facility," he said. "The council will decide what to do with the remaining human refugees." Wei looked up at him. Her eyes were red from tears, but something burned in them. Something that made the guard take a step back. "You think this is over," she said quietly. "You think you've won." "We have won," the guard replied. "Your world is dead." Wei smiled. It was not a sane smile. "You killed our home. You murdered 9 billion people. You laughed while we died." She stood slowly, and though she was small and unarmed, the guard raised his weapon. "But you made a mistake. You did not kill all of us, and humans have long memories. You are refugees now," called down from his seat. "Scattered, broken. You have no ships, no weapons, no world. What can you possibly do?" Wei did not answer. She let the guards take her away. But far beyond the edge of the solar system, past the cold darkness where no council ship had ever traveled, something was waking up. Lights flickered on in places that had been dark for decades. Engines that had been silent began to hum. And in the command center of a ship that officially did not exist, a screen displayed a simple message. "Prometheus signal received. Beginning phase 2. Estimated time to completion, 5 years." The galaxy thought humanity was finished. The galaxy was wrong. 5 years had passed since Earth died. The galaxy had moved on. New trade routes were established. Old arguments were settled. The council divided Earth's former territories among themselves like thieves sharing stolen gold. They claimed the Sol system as a memorial preserve, though everyone knew they simply wanted to study the ruins. Humanity became a ghost story, a warning told to young species about what happened to those who challenged the council's authority. But ghosts, as it turned out, were hard to kill completely. Commander stood on the bridge of the cargo ship Wanderer and watched the stars through the dirty. The ship was old and tired, held together by patches and prayers. It was one of 12 vessels in her convoy, carrying almost 3,000 human survivors through the dark spaces between systems. They had been running for 5 years, hiding in nebula clouds, trading with smugglers, begging for scraps from species who them. Some days wondered why they bothered. Earth was gone. Their families were gone. What was the point of surviving when there was nothing left to survive for? But then she would look at the children on her ships, children who had never seen Earth's blue skies or felt its warm sun on their faces, children who deserved a chance to grow up, and she would keep going for one more day. "Commander," her first officer said. His name was David, and he had been a teacher before the war. Now he was whatever the convoy needed him to be. "We're picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Walked over to his station. Strange how? A signal, very weak, very far away, but the encoding is definitely human. Felt something stir in her chest. Hope. She had learned to hate that feeling. Hope had betrayed her too many times. "Could be a trap," she said. "The Council has been hunting survivors." "Could be," agreed. "But the encoding uses old Earth military protocols, protocols that were classified. The Council wouldn't know them." Stared at the sensor display. The signal was coming from beyond charted space, from a region that Council maps marked as empty. Nothing was supposed to be out there. Nothing but dust and darkness. "What does the message say?" Played it through the speakers. A voice spoke calm and clear. "Children of Earth, come home. Coordinates follow, tell no one." The bridge was silent. Could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "Home," she whispered. "There is no home." "Maybe there is," said quietly. "Maybe someone built one." Thought about it for a long time. The safe choice was to ignore the signal, keep running, keep hiding, keep surviving one day at a time. But safe choices had not saved Earth. Safe choices had left humanity weak and unprepared when the Council decided to end them. "Set a course," she said finally. "We follow the signal." The journey took 3 months. 3 months of jumping through uncharted systems, dodging asteroid fields, and praying that their old engines would not fail. They lost 2 ships along the way, one to a mechanical failure, one to a space anomaly that appeared from nowhere and swallowed the vessel whole, added their names to the long list of dead that she carried in her heart. But they kept going. The signal grew stronger with each jump. Other ships joined them, emerging from hiding places across the galaxy. Human ships, dozens of them at first, then hundreds, all following the same signal, all hopping for the same impossible thing. On the last jump, held her breath as the Wanderer emerged from fold space into an unknown system. What she saw made her cry. A planet hung before them, green and blue and alive. It was not Earth, but it was beautiful in the same way. Oceans sparkled under the light of a yellow sun. Clouds drifted across continents covered in forests and grasslands. And in orbit around this paradise, thousands of ships waited. Human ships. Ships larger and more advanced than anything had ever seen. "Commander," said, his voice breaking, "are you seeing this?" "I see it," replied. "I just don't believe it." A transmission came through. An old man's face appeared on there. He had white hair and kind eyes and wore a uniform that recognized from history books. The uniform of Earth's Deep Space Initiative, a program that had been officially shut down 60 years ago. "Welcome to Haven," the old man said with a warm smile. "My name is Admiral James. You're just in time. We've been preparing for 80 years and we're almost ready." "Ready for what?" asked. The Admiral's smile faded, replaced by something harder, something fierce. "Ready to go back, ready to make them pay, ready to show the galaxy what happens when you try to kill humanity." His convoy was brought down to the planet's surface. What she saw there amazed her even more than the fleet in orbit. Cities stretched across the landscape, clean and bright and full of life. Factories produced weapons and ships at an incredible pace. Schools taught children science and art and history. Hospitals healed the sick and injured. Farms grew food enough to feed millions. This was not a refugee camp. This was a civilization, a hidden civilization that had been growing in secret for almost a century. Admiral met her personally at the landing field. Up close, he looked even older, but his handshake was strong. "I know you have questions," he said. "Come with me, I'll explain everything." He took her to a building at the center of the main city. Inside was a museum of sorts. Photographs and documents covered the walls, telling a story that had never heard. 80 years ago, when humanity first met the Council, our leaders saw the truth, explained. The Council was not a government. It was a machine for keeping young species down. Every species that joined eventually lost their independence, their creativity, their will to grow. The Council did not want partners. They wanted servants. He pointed to a photograph of a group of men and women in old-fashioned suits. These were the founders of the Prometheus Initiative. They knew that one day the Council would turn on us, so they made a plan. They found this world far beyond Council space, and they began to build, secretly, carefully. For 80 years we have been preparing for the day that Earth fell. "You knew," said, her voice was cold. "You knew this would happen, and you let it happen." "Yes," said. He did not look away from her anger. "We knew. And yes, we let it happen. We could have revealed ourselves. We could have fought alongside Earth. But if we had, the Council would have hunted us down. They would have found Haven. Everything we built would have been destroyed, and humanity would truly be extinct. 9 billion people died." "I know." The Admiral's voice was heavy with grief. "I lost my granddaughter on Earth. I remember every single life that was taken from us, and I will carry that guilt until the day I die. But those deaths were not meaningless. The Council believes they won. They believe humanity is scattered and broken and finished. That belief is their greatest weakness, and we are going to use it against them." He led her to a window overlooking the shipyards. Massive vessels were being assembled, each one bristling with weapons that did not recognize. "The Council's technology has been stagnant for 10,000 years, said. They stopped innovating because they had no competition, but we never stopped. For 80 years, the minds of humanity have been working here, free from Council restrictions. We have weapons they cannot imagine, shields they cannot break, engines that let us cross the galaxy in hours instead of weeks." "How many ships?" asked. 10,000, each one worth 100 of theirs. Stared at the shipyards. Her hands were shaking. She was not sure if it was from fear or excitement or rage, maybe all three. "When do we go back?" she asked. Admiral smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting a very long time for revenge. "Soon," he said. "Very soon. The fleet will be ready in 1 month, and then the Galactic Council will learn what it really means to make an enemy of humanity." Looked out at the ships being built. She thought about Earth. She thought about her parents who had died in Beijing. She thought about her little brother who had been only 7 years old. She had spent 5 years running, 5 years hiding, 5 years being afraid. No more. "I want a command," she said. "I want to be there when we make them pay." "I was hoping you would say that," replied. "Welcome to the Reclamation Fleet, Commander. We have work to do." Commander spent the next month learning everything about Haven. What she discovered changed how she understood humanity's entire history with the galaxy. The scientists of Haven had not just been building weapons. They had been reinventing what was possible. While Earth struggled under Council trade restrictions and technology limits, Haven had been free to dream without boundaries. And humans, learned, could dream very big dreams indeed. Dr. Sarah Martinez was one of the lead researchers. She was a small woman with wild gray hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. She had been born on Haven, the daughter of one of the original colonists. She had never seen Earth, but she had dedicated her entire life to avenging it. "Let me show you what 80 years of freedom can create," she said, leading through a massive research facility. The first room contained engines. Not the slow, clumsy engines that Council ships used, but something entirely new. "Fold space drives," Martinez explained. "We bend space itself. A journey that takes a council ship 3 months takes us 3 hours, and we can micro-jump during combat, disappearing and reappearing faster than their weapons can track. The second room held weapons that made breath catch. Gravity lances, Martinez said. They create focused gravitational waves. Nothing can shield against gravity. Nothing can hide from it. One shot can tear a cruiser in half. The third room was different. Instead of machines, it contained medical equipment. Tanks filled with strange blue liquid lined the walls. "This is what we call the wake," Martinez said softly. "Our greatest achievement. We have extended the human to 300 years. We have cured diseases that plagued our species for. We have made ourselves stronger, faster, more resistant to harm." "You changed what it means to be human," said. "We improved what it means to be human," Martinez corrected. "We did not lose anything. We gained everything. The council species stopped evolving 10,000 years ago. They believed they had reached perfection. But evolution never stops. It only waits for those brave enough to keep pushing forward." Spent her days training with the fleet and her nights studying Haven's history. She learned that the original colonists had faced terrible hardships. The planet had been barely habitable when they arrived. It had taken decades of work to transform it into the paradise it was today. Many had died in those early years. Their names were carved into a great wall in the center of the main city, a reminder of the cost of survival. She also learned about the network of spies that Haven had maintained on Earth and throughout Council space. For 80 years, they had gathered information. They had identified every Council secret, every hidden atrocity, every lie that held the galactic order together. "The Council has ruled through fear and deception for 10,000 years, Admiral explained during one of their planning sessions. They make young species believe that resistance is impossible. They crush anyone who shows too much independence. They have destroyed dozens of civilizations to maintain their power." "And we're going to stop them," said. "We're going to do more than stop them. We're going to expose them. Every species in the galaxy will learn the truth about what the Council really is, and then the Council will tear itself apart." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The reclamation fleet would not try to conquer the galaxy. That was impossible, even with their superior technology. Instead, they would strike at the Council's heart and broadcast the truth to every world that could receive a signal. For 10,000 years, the Council had told the galaxy that they were wise and just rulers, that they protected young species from their own foolishness, that rebellion was futile and cooperation was the only path to prosperity. All of it was lies. Haven had proof of genocides, proof of stolen technology, proof of assassinations and manufactured wars and species driven to extinction for profit. When the galaxy saw this proof, the Council's authority would crumble. But first, they had to get the galaxy's attention. "We strike Nexus Prime," said, pointing to a holographic map of the Council's capital system. "The heart of their power, the symbol of their authority. We defeat their fleet, we broadcast our evidence, and we watch their empire fall." "The combined fleet will be there," one of the other commanders pointed out. 4,000 ships, the same fleet that destroyed Earth. Smiled coldly. "Good. I want them there. I want every species in the galaxy to see what happens to the fleet that murdered our world." Stood before her new command 2 days before the fleet was scheduled to depart. The HSS Defiance was beautiful, 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, painted in the black and gold colors of the human reclamation. She was faster than anything the Council had ever built. She was more powerful than entire fleets of enemy ships, and she was. Her crew assembled in the main hangar bay. 2,000 men and women from Earth and Haven, and a dozen refugee ships that had wandered the galaxy for 5 years. They were soldiers and scientists and engineers and pilots. They were the survivors of humanity's darkest hour, and they were ready to fight. "I won't lie to you," said, her voice carrying across the hangar. "What we're about to do is dangerous. Many of us will die. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They have crushed every rebellion, defeated every enemy, destroyed every threat. They believe they cannot be beaten. She paused, looking at the faces before her. Some were young, barely adults. Others were old, veterans of Earth's defense fleet who had escaped the massacre by pure luck. All of them carried the same fire in their eyes. But they have never faced us, continued. They have never faced humans who refuse to accept defeat. They have never faced the children of 9 billion murdered souls demanding justice. They think they broke us when they burned our world. They think we are weak because we feel, because we mourn, because we remember. Her voice rose, filling the hangar with its strength. They are wrong. Our grief is not weakness. It is fuel. Our memory is not a burden. It is a weapon. For 5 years we have hidden in the darkness, waiting for this moment. For 5 years we have prepared to show the galaxy what humanity really is. Tomorrow we stop hiding. Tomorrow we go home. Tomorrow the Council learns why they should never have made an enemy of the human race. The hangar erupted in cheers. Let the sound wash over her. For the first time in 5 years she felt something other than grief and anger. She felt pride. She felt hope. She felt ready. That night she stood alone on the observation deck, watching the stars. Somewhere out there Earth was waiting. A dead world, poisoned and empty, but not forever. Haven's scientists had developed technologies that could restore the planet. It would take decades, maybe centuries. But one day humans would walk on Earth again. One day children would play in parks and swim in oceans and look up at a sky that was blue instead of red with fire. One day, but first there was work to do. Admiral's voice came over the ship's speakers. All hands, prepare for departure. The reclamation fleet launches in 1 hour. May whatever gods you believe in watch over us, and may the Council face the justice they have earned. Turned away from the stars and walked to the bridge. Her crew was waiting. Her ship was ready. And somewhere across the galaxy, the beings who had murdered her world were sleeping peacefully, believing that humanity was finished. They were about to wake up. The fleet emerged from Haven's orbit like a river of steel and fire. 10,000 ships, each one a monument to human determination. They formed into perfect formation, their engines blazing against the darkness of space. And then, as one, they vanished into fold space, racing toward destiny. The Galactic Council had no idea what was coming, but they would learn soon enough. Humanity was coming home, and humanity was angry. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime was filled with the usual sounds of boredom. Representatives from 100 species argued about trade tariffs and border disputes and other matters that seemed important to those who had forgotten what real problems felt like. High Arbiter sat in his great chair, barely listening. He had heard these same arguments for 3 centuries. Nothing ever changed. Nothing ever threatened the order he had built. Then the alarms began to scream. Every screen in the chamber flashed red. Warning messages appeared in a dozen languages. Council guards rushed to their stations. Species that had been arguing moments before fell silent, staring at the displays with confusion and growing fear. "What is happening?" demanded. His aide approached, his scales pale with terror. "High Arbiter, our sensors have detected an incoming fleet. They emerged from fold space 30 seconds ago. They are already inside the system." Fold space. Only we have that technology. Which member species is responsible for this violation? The aide swallowed hard. None of them High Arbiter, the ships. The signatures are human. Laughed, it was a harsh, ugly sound. "Impossible. The humans are dead. We killed them 5 years ago." "Sir, there are 10,000 ships. They are taking position around Nexus Prime." The laughter died in his throat. He stood from his chair and walked to the main. What he saw there made his heart stop. Ships, human ships, thousands of them hanging in the darkness like a wall of metal and fire. They were huge, far larger than anything the Council possessed. Their hulls were black as night, painted with symbols that did not recognize. and they were everywhere, surrounding the planet in a formation that left no path of escape. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We destroyed them, we burned their world, we killed 9 billion. Apparently, sir, we missed some." Forced himself to think. He had not ruled the Council for 3 centuries by panicking in crisis. Contact the combined fleet at the shipyards. Order them to mobilize immediately. We will crush these survivors as we crushed their world. The aide's pale scales went even paler. "Sir, we received a report from 30 minutes ago. The shipyards have been destroyed. The combined fleet has been destroyed. A single human vessel attacked them. They used some kind of weapon we have never seen before. The moon was shattered. 14 million dead." For the first time in 300 years, felt fear. A transmission cut through the chaos. Every screen in the council chamber flickered, then displayed the same image. A human woman's face. She was young, with dark hair and dark eyes and a scar running down her left cheek. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful, but her eyes burned with something that made take a step backward. "My name is Commander of the Human Reclamation Fleet," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber like a blade. "5 years ago, you murdered our world. You killed 9 billion people. You laughed while we died." She paused, and her calm expression hardened into something terrible. "Today, the Galactic Council will answer for its crimes, not just against humanity, but against every species you have crushed under your heel for 10,000 years. You thought you destroyed us. You were wrong. We survived. We grew stronger. And now we have returned." Grabbed a communication device. "This is High Arbiter. I am ordering all defense platforms to open fire. Destroy those ships immediately." The defense platforms responded. Thousands of weapons fired at once, filling the space around Nexus Prime with light and death. It was enough firepower to destroy a fleet 10 times the size of the human armada. Not a single shot hit its target. The human ships simply were not there when the weapons arrived. They vanished and reappeared, jumping through space faster than the Council's targeting systems could follow. It was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. Then the humans fired back. Beams of twisted light reached out from the black ships. Where they touched Council vessels, reality itself seemed to bend. Ships crumpled like paper. Defense platforms collapsed into themselves. In the space of 3 minutes, the entire outer defense network was gone. The council chamber was in chaos. Representatives were screaming, running for exits that would not save them. Guards fired their weapons at nothing, driven mad by fear. Only remained at the center of the room, staring at them with disbelief. "How," he whispered, "how is this possible?" Commander's face reappeared on the screen. "You underestimated us," she said. "You thought emotions made us weak. You thought our grief would break us. You were wrong. Our grief made us strong. Our anger gave us purpose. For 5 years we have prepared for this moment. For 5 years we have built weapons you cannot comprehend. And now, High Arbiter, you will face justice." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 40 minutes. Every council military asset in the system was destroyed. Ships, stations, platforms, satellites, all of it reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The human fleet took no losses, not one ship, not one life. But the humans did not destroy the council chambers. They did not bombard the planet. They did not kill the billions of civilians who lived on Nexus Prime. Instead, they began to broadcast. Every communication system in the galaxy received the same transmission. Every radio, every device capable of receiving a signal suddenly displayed evidence that the Council had kept hidden for 10,000 years. Recordings of Council leaders ordering genocides. Documents proving that they had stolen technology from young species. Video of assassinations carried out against leaders who refused to submit. Evidence of wars manufactured to keep species fighting each other instead of challenging council authority. A complete record of every lie, every atrocity, every crime committed in the name of galactic order. For 10,000 years, the Council has told you that they are wise and just, his voice said over the broadcast. They have told you that rebellion is impossible. They have told you that obedience is the only path to survival. These are lies. The Council is not a government. It is a machine for keeping the galaxy enslaved. Today, that machine is broken. Today, you have a choice. You can continue to serve the beings who have oppressed you or you can stand up and claim the freedom that is your right. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the broadcast. They saw the evidence. They heard the truth, and they began to react. On 100 worlds, protests erupted. Species that had been loyal to the Council for thousands of years turned against their rulers. Governors were arrested. Military forces defected. In the span of hours, the Galactic Council's authority began to crumble. Watched it happen from the chamber that had once been the seat of his power. His fellow council members had fled or been taken prisoner by their own guards. He was alone now, surrounded by humans who had come down from their ships to accept his surrender. Commander stood before him. She was smaller than he had expected, younger, but the fire in her eyes was ancient, fed by the deaths of 9 billion souls. "You destroyed our world," she said. "You murdered our families. You tried to erase us from the galaxy." Straightened his spine. He was High Arbiter. He would face his end with dignity. "So kill me, take your revenge. It will not bring them back." Shook her head slowly. "Killing you would be too easy. You would become a martyr. Your followers would use your death to rally support. No, High Arbiter, you are going to live. You are going to stand trial before the entire galaxy. Every species you have wronged will watch as you answer for your crimes. And then, when you have been judged, your own people will decide your fate." She turned away from him, looking out the window at the human ships that filled the sky. "We did not come here to conquer," she said. "We came here to expose the truth. The galaxy is free now. What they do with that freedom is up to them, but they will never be slaves again. And they will never forget what happens to those who try to destroy humanity." Was taken away in chains. Across the galaxy, the revolution continued to spread. The Galactic Council, which had ruled for 10,000 years, was finished. And humanity, which had been pronounced dead 5 years ago, stood at the center of a new era. They had returned, they had won, and they were just getting started. 10 years had passed since the Battle of Nexus Prime. The galaxy was a different place now. The Galactic Council had shattered completely. 7 of the 12 founding species had faced revolutions from within. Their people, horrified to learn what had been done in their name, had overthrown the leaders who had supported the old order. And the other architects of humanity's genocide had been tried before a tribunal representing 50 species. They were found guilty. Their own people had sentenced them to spend the rest of their lives on prison worlds, forced to watch as the galaxy they had oppressed built something better. On Haven, Admiral had faced a different kind of trial. Some humans had wanted revenge. They had wanted to burn the Council worlds as Earth had been burned. They had wanted to make the galaxy suffer as humanity had suffered. Had argued against them. "We have the power to conquer the galaxy," he had said. "We have the weapons, the ships, the technology. We could rule everything from here to the edge of the universe. But what would that make us? We would become exactly what we fought against. We would become the Council." The debate had been fierce. Many had lost too much to accept forgiveness. Many wanted the enemy to feel the same pain they had felt. But in the end, humanity chose a different path. They would rebuild, not destroy. They would offer friendship, not conquest. They would prove that they deserved to survive not through strength alone, but through wisdom. Earth was green again. It had taken 10 years of work. Human scientists and engineers had labored without rest to heal the poisoned soil and clear the polluted air. Seeds preserved in Haven's vaults had been planted across every continent. Animals bred from genetic samples had been released into the wild. Cities had been rebuilt, not as exact copies of what was lost, but as monuments to what could be. Commander stood on a balcony in rebuilt Shanghai, watching ships rise toward the stars. She was older now, gray showing in her hair, lines on her face that had not been there a decade ago. But her eyes were still sharp, still burning with the same fire that had carried her through the darkest years. She had been offered many things after the victory: promotions, commands, political positions. She had refused them all. Instead, she had volunteered for the Outreach Initiative, traveling across the galaxy to find lost human survivors and bring them home. For 10 years, she had searched the dark corners of the universe, finding humans who had hidden for decades, who had believed they were the last of their kind. Each one she found was a small victory. Each one reminded her why they had fought. The door behind her opened. A young entered, his scales the same deep purple as had been. He was nervous, his eyes darting around the room as if he expected to be attacked at any moment. His people were still making amends for what the old government had done. It would take generations before the wounds fully healed. "Commander," he said, bowing his head respectfully, "thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "You're the ambassador's son, aren't you?" said. "I met your father at the peace conference last year." "Yes, Commander, he speaks highly of you." The young hesitated, gathering his courage. "I came to ask you a question, one that my people have been debating for years." "Ask." "How did you do it?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "After everything we took from you, after all the death and destruction and pain, how did humanity survive? How did you not simply give up?" Was quiet for a long moment. She looked out at the ships climbing toward the sky. Human ships, yes, but not only human ships. Vessels from a dozen species flew alongside them, carrying explorers and scientists and dreamers toward the endless frontier of space. The galaxy was healing, slowly, imperfectly, but healing nonetheless. "You misunderstood us from the beginning," she said finally. "All of you, the Council, the other species. You looked at us and saw primitives, emotional creatures driven by instinct rather than logic. You thought our feelings made us weak." She turned to face him, and for a moment the young saw something ancient in her eyes, something that had watched worlds burn and refused to break. "But that is not what emotion does. It does not make us fragile. It makes us refuse to quit. You killed our world and we mourned. We raged. We remembered. And then we came back. That is what being human means. We always come back." The young nodded slowly. "My father says that the galaxy is safer now than it has been in 10,000 years. He says that humanity brought something to the universe that was missing: hope. The belief that tomorrow can be better than today." "Your father is wise," said. "The council ruled through fear. They told everyone that change was impossible, that the strong would always crush the weak, that resistance was futile. They were wrong. Change is always possible. The weak can become strong, and resistance, no matter how hopeless it seems, is never futile." She smiled, and for the first time there was warmth in it. Not just the fire of battle, but something softer, something that had grown in the years since the war ended. "Do you want to know the real reason humanity survived?" she asked. They leaned forward. "Yes, please." "Love," said simply. "We survived because we loved each other. We loved our families. We loved our world. We loved our species. And when you tried to take all of that away, our love became a weapon. It drove us to keep fighting when logic said we should surrender. It pushed us to build when it would have been easier to destroy. It made us choose hope over despair, creation over revenge, life over death." She pointed toward the sky, where the ships were now distant lights among the stars. "Look at that. Human ships and vessels from 20 other species all flying together. 10 years ago, that would have been impossible. 10 years ago, the galaxy was divided by fear and hatred and lies. But we changed that. Not through conquest, not through force. Through showing the universe that there was another way. Through proving that enemies could become friends. Through loving even those who had hurt us." The young's eyes were wide. "That is not what I expected you to say." "What did you expect?" "I expected you to talk about your weapons, your technology, Your strategic genius. Laughed. It was a good laugh full of life. Those things helped, but weapons cannot heal a galaxy. Technology cannot rebuild trust. Strategy cannot create a future worth living in. Only love can do those things. Only love was strong enough to carry us through the darkness. She put a hand on the young's shoulder. Go back to your people. Tell them what I told you. Tell them that humanity does not hate them. We remember what was done to us, yes. We will always remember, but we have chosen to move forward. We have chosen to build instead of destroy, and we invite them to build with us. The bowed deeply. Thank you, Commander. I will carry your words with me always. After he left, remained on the balcony for a long time. The sun was setting over Shanghai, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Children were playing in the streets below, their laughter rising up like music. They had never known the old Earth. They had never seen the fire that consumed it. For them, this world was not a memorial. It was simply home. Thought about her parents, who had died when Beijing burned. She thought about her little brother, who never got to grow up. She thought about the 9 billion souls who had been taken from the universe on a single terrible night. We made it, she whispered. We survived, we came back, and we built something beautiful. Far above, the stars were coming out. Somewhere among them, humanity was spreading, growing, reaching toward new frontiers. They had learned from their near extinction. They had become wiser, stronger, more united. And they had opened their hearts to a galaxy that had once tried to destroy them. The Galactic Council had smiled, thinking humans were defeated. They had been wrong. Humanity had returned, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as builders of a new future, as healers of old wounds, as the species that refused to die, refused to hate, refused to give up on the possibility of something better. The stars burned bright above the restored Earth. Ships carried humanity's children toward every corner of the galaxy. And somewhere in the vastness of space, new allies were being made, new friendships were being formed, and a new era was dawning. The humans had come back. And they were just getting started. Above the rebuilt cities of Earth, above the green forests and blue oceans that had risen from the ashes, a simple monument stood. It was made of white stone, carved with 9 billion names. At its base, 4 words were inscribed. We remember, we endure. And below that, smaller but no less important, 2 more. We love. That was humanity's answer to the darkness. That was the weapon that no enemy could defeat. That was the truth that the Galactic Council had never understood. Love was why humanity survived. Love was why they always would.